There is a kind of magic in a sauce that's been made for generations. In Sicily, we made it every summer. The scent of tomatoes, the sound of family in the kitchen, and the comfort of knowing it will be there all winter long. Buongiorno, we're just back from the supermarket and we bought some tomatoes on the vine which were on offer. Here they are. So I decided to buy nearly 3 kilos. And I've also got some left in the fridge from the last time I went to the supermarket. The idea is that today I will be leaving them in my sound lounge to ripen a little bit further. And in a few days I'll show you how to make some homemade tomato at home. And then I will be putting them in little glass jars and use them in the winter.
So, what you mean like your mum used to do?
Like my mum used to do. So I'll leave them here to ripen and I will see you in a few days. Ciao ciao for now. Welcome back. A few days later, 3 to be exact, and I'm ready to make my tomato sauce. They've been sitting here untouched for the last 3 days and they are perfect now, ready. Some of them are softer than others, but they are just, look, this one is a little bit softer, but just the perfect consistency. So I will go and wash them and then we can start cooking. I will be making 2 different types of sauce today. One is called Ortolana, which is like a garden style sauce. And the other one is a very simple sauce, a bit like an Arrabbiata base. And I'm using as much as possible from our garden. So for example, this is garlic, which Julia has grown, so I will be using that. Also, we've got some very fresh carrots, literally. They were singing under the ground about 5 minutes ago, which I'm washing very well. And here's the other one. And also I've got a courgette or zucchini, which is part of my Ortolana recipe. This is also from our garden, something Julie picked a couple of days ago. The pepper and the celery are from the supermarket. Moving on to the tomatoes next. Very important if you're doing this recipe or this method of preserving your tomatoes, that you wash them thoroughly, more than ever really, because obviously you don't want any bacteria whatsoever in them. So just pick them one by one and give them a good wash under fresh water, just like I'm doing right now. And they will be absolutely safe. Arguably you could say that they will cook anyway, but I always like to think that they are as clean as they can be. And they are done. If you look, the odd one has got a little bit of mold attached to it. That's fine, I will remove it later, but I'm not going to be wasting the whole thing. I'll show you what to do later.
Is this the bit where you drop them all on the floor?
Hopefully not. So if you follow me, I'm going to show you my little station I've set up specifically for today, as I've decided that it is such a lovely day and I am replicating a Sicilian recipe. So I thought I'll work outside.
Your mum never had a lovely garden like this, bless her, to work in.
No, but that is the spirit. And it is very sunny, and I'm going to wear my Sicilian hat for 2 reasons. To keep my head in protected, but also to be absolutely fully in the tradition. And,
I see, that's the authentic Sicilian hat, because I remember seeing your mum in one of those.
Well, that's okay. Someone is being very sarcastic today, as usual. And here is my apron, so I don't get messy. So I'll get myself organized and I'll make a start. And I'll start by inspecting all of my tomatoes and removing anything which is gone off, like this one, so that I can go in my compost bin. Here is another one. Very simply, I'll just go in with a paring knife and I'll go around the part which is off and remove it all together, just like this. But most of them are in very good condition and I'm very pleased with them, so I'm actually satisfied. Oops, there's one more here. I'll just remove this part which is going off. And I think I got pretty much the extent of all of them very, very well cleaned, and they're ready. So out of all of them, there were 3 which were in bad shape, but the rest are pretty good. I'm not chopping them in little pieces. You can do them in half, you can do them in 8 pieces, depending on how many you are cooking, and also depending how big your tomatoes are. In my case, as they are pretty big, I'll do them in about 8 to 10 pieces, just like this, so that they will all fit in the pan. I need to make some space on my chopping board, so I'll start dealing with the garlic next, so that I can free it up. So this is the garlic which I have picked from Julie's shed. She actually is drying it up. And as it is very young, I'm going to be using quite a bit, as it is not as sharp as the garlic you might buy from supermarket. Also, bearing in mind that this is very, very young, I'm going to keep the skin today. I'm cooking 4 kilos of tomatoes, so I'm using half of the garlic from our garden. But if you were to do similar amount at home, I would recommend that no more than a large cloves of garlic from the supermarket, as they are a lot sharper. So with this one, I just give it a gentle crush with my knife like this. I'll just make some space for my saucepan over here, and I'll apply a generous amount of olive oil. Bearing in mind I'm cooking 4 kilos of tomato, you want to be a little bit more generous than normal. And in it goes my garlic and all of the tomatoes which I've been chopping. So I'll put this out of the way for the time being, but I will not be turning it on until I've chopped all of my tomatoes. In the meantime, let me tell you a little bit about the tradition of making tomato passata in Sicily in the old days. And I do actually remember myself, when I was a little boy, I used to spend entire days, sometimes with my mum and dad, brothers and sister, making tomato at home for the winter. But even my mum was a relatively small scale. My dad would buy something like 10 to 15 crates of tomatoes, and they would go to the Vidano, which was the person in Sicily who would grow them. And you would have obviously your Vidano of trust, that you trust, and you buy 10, 15 crates, 25 kilo each crate, and you take it home, and very much the weekend would be going about making tomatoes, and that would have involved cooking them and preparing them. And at the time, obviously, as a little boy, I wanted to be on the beach playing with my friends, but it was actually a worthwhile experience. But if I rewind the clock even further, actually supermarkets in Sicily, they didn't do very well in selling tomatoes, because the tradition and the culture was very much that you made your own. And it was very unusual for people to buy passatas from supermarkets back in the old days. I'm talking about post-war Sicily, of course. And you would actually have entire families. And when I say families, I'm talking about nonno, nonna, which is a granddad and a grandmother, papa and mama and the children, uncles and aunt, all together mucking in, making tomato passata for the entire year. And you would see something like I don't know, maybe sometimes like 50 crates or even more of tomatoes being effectively reduced to a pulp to make passata. And it was very much a family thing, where the men used to do the job of the men, more of the manual labor, making the fire. They used to use these big oil drums to cook the bottles eventually. The women would boil the tomatoes, and they would do more of the technical stuff in terms of temperature and so on. And it was very much, you can just imagine a big family to do. And if you think back, actually, it was lovely, because it wasn't just about saving money and cooking something at home, making it genuine, but also it was a value which was imparted and passed on to generation, to your children. And those values have disappeared, and actually now it's very rare that people make tomato passata at home in the summer. Also, something else that I want to share with you is the principle that people used to apply, and they would actually save money. They save money throughout the year to then invest in the tomatoes that they would cook in the summer, because also obviously it was a big one-off expense, worthwhile in terms of the money they would save in the long run, but they would actually save money throughout the winter to then buy the tomatoes during the year, and they would make effectively enough for then to last throughout the year until the following summer. And I do actually remember when we used to do it, that you would have tomatoes as a base of a sauce most days at home. And because you made it in the summer, and there were fresh ingredients used, and when you make this sort of stuff, it will be actually locking in the freshness of summer. As you then eat it in winter, immediately it brings back the flavors of summer. Really delicious. I'm not making a tomato passata today. I am making a variation of it, because I do not have the little mill, tomato mill, that you use to do that. but I would be quite happy to buy one if you'd like me to show you how to make it. And obviously I'm using today some jars, some glass jars, but in that case they used to use bottles, and very, very happy to do that. Let me know in the comments, and very happy to make it, of course. I nearly forgot, sorry. One fond memory I have is the fire, where they would, oops, I'm dropping them all over the table, where they would use an old oil drum to effectively cook all of the bottles once they were filled with tomatoes. That is something that got stuck to my mind, because this fire would go on all day and all night sometimes. Really, really lovely. See if I can find some clips on the internet, and assuming they are royalty free, I'll share them with you. And here is my last batch of tomatoes, just the perfect amount for my little pot. See, it's almost full. I'm now adding some salt. I'm going to be obviously a little bit more generous because of the quantity I'm making, and some pepper. In the meantime, I'll turn my hob on maximum temperature, and here I've got some basil, just the leaves by the way, not the stems, so quantity is entirely up to you, but I do recommend that you add some, as this is the trick of that summer flavor I was describing earlier. So basil goes in. Hopefully be able to hear them as I'm outside, but they're beginning to sizzle, so I'll turn the temperature down on medium now, and I'll place the lid and I'll leave them for a good 10 minutes, and they will soften up and start releasing lots of the lovely juice. In the meantime, I'll prepare the base, which will be the batch for the second type of sauce I'll be making, which will also come from this. I'm in a slightly different situation today, as I am finding that I'm trying to raise the sun. Normally when I cook indoors, no problem at all, because I am inside and the lighting is all set up based on what I want and what I need. But I am at the mercy of the sun today, and we keep moving, and I want to make sure that I stay within the sun. If it becomes too shady, then the quality of the video is not very good. So you might find that you get different angles. That's not because I'm trying to be clever, it's trying to be away from the shade. So I'm working on my soffritto for the ortolana, and I've just chopped an onion in very small pieces, and next is going to be a little pepper. As I often say with these recipes, you can use any vegetables you like, or whatever you've got in the fridge. You can replace, for example, the pepper with an eggplant or aubergine, or you do not need to use it, but obviously the more vegetables you add, the more the texture and flavor of the ortolana you will get. And just like the onions, I'll chop in the pepper in tiny little pieces, as this will be going inside my jar, so I want to make sure that they're not very big. And actually that will apply to all of my ingredients. So here is my zucchini. I'll cut that in half first, then I'll do a few little strips just like this, and away I go. I make some little cubes. And once again I need some space, so new saucepan comes out, and a little olive oil goes at the bottom. And I start moving in my chopped vegetables in it, and I'll turn them on initially on a medium to high temperature, and I will start chopping the rest of the vegetables. And by now you will have gathered that they will receive exactly the same treatment as everything else. So I'll start with my fresh carrots. You saw me washing them earlier, so I'm not going to be removing the skin, as I think is a shame, and it's really, really good for you. And here comes the celery. I'm going to use also these ones here, where they are beginning to sprout, as I think they add additional flavor and a different type of texture. And I'll go through the middle for the large one, and yet again I'll go along and chop them in tiny little pieces. And everything can go in together, and I'll give my vegetables a good mix. I'm not going to be adding any salt or pepper, as I've already added salt to the tomatoes earlier, but I'll place the lid on and I'll turn them down now to medium temperature, and just like the tomatoes, I'll leave them to continue cooking for about 10 minutes, which is the exact amount of time I will need to sterilize my glass jars. These are a mixture of different jars. Some are from olives, which we buy, marmalade, and also you will notice that they are in different sizes. This is because I will be making some for larger quantities and some for maybe just one meal. So they will go in the oven for about 10 minutes, temperature of 100 degrees, and then I'll get them out, and I've cleaned them earlier, so they're lovely and green on the inside, but they need to be sterilized. So I'll go and pop them in. Change of plan, and I've got some good news and some not so good news. I'll start with the not so good news. I thought that the sun was my problem, but how wrong could I be? All of a sudden my little hob stopped working, and when I inspected it I noticed that the little socket here, or the plug I should say, has got an adapter which came with it when I bought it, and look, has melted. So I'm going to have to replace this, and in order to make it work again. So these things happen, but the good news is that it's not going to stop me from continuing the video. So I decided to move into my little kitchen outside, and I will continue. In the meantime, my glass is all sterilized, and also the rest of the ingredients are cooked. So I'll just tidy up and I'll show you what to do next. And I'll start with the sauce first. So let's remove the lid. Whoa, it smells nice though, and it's very, very typical smell of sauce when you cook like that. There's something distinctive about it. By the way, I meant to say earlier, have you ever made tomato at home? Maybe in Sicily or southern Italian cultures are very similar. I would like to hear if you have shared similar experiences to mine. I appreciate that many of my followers, especially in the States, they often have got similar memories in terms of what I experienced as a child. If you do, share it in the comments. So I've got a little blender here, and I'll blend this all together. And of course everything will be blended together, including my garlic, and you might think, oh, you left the skin on. You can see that it doesn't really matter. The same applies also with the skin of the tomatoes and the seeds. Personally, I don't mind it, and I leave it in. But if you don't like the skin, or you want also to remove the seeds from the tomatoes, you can blanch the tomatoes before you cook them. Put a little cross on the top, then remove the skin, remove the seeds, open them up, and then you carry on as normal. But I don't think it's necessary, and actually I think personally it adds flavor. So I'll carry on until it's all blended. And I'll stop now. If you take a look, it does actually look a little bit like passata, but I have purposely also left the little bit of tomato whole, so that adds a little bit of texture. So I'll bring back my vegetables, which are beautifully cooked and tender. I'll show you. See, they are absolutely perfect. And I will now add some of my sauce over here, and I'll split it 50-50. Of course, you do not have to make the ortolana pasta. You can just use this, or you can just make the ortolana, entirely up to you. But when I do things like this, I do some and some, because obviously this sauce here will be more versatile, as it can be used for other recipes, whereas this is more of a vegetarian style of base. And both of my sauces are back on the hob. Here the ortolana is on the back, and the simple one is at the front. And I'll chop a little parsley next. This is again freshly picked from the garden, but you can also use the dry stuff if you do not have access to fresh parsley. And I'll split it in half, and I'll place half here in my simple sauce and the other half with my ortolana. Also, I mentioned chilies earlier to give my simple pasta a little base of arrabbiata, so I'm going to add a few chili peppers to this version, but not here, just here. Of course, you can add it to both if you want. And as you can hear them, they're bubbling away beautifully, so I'll mix my ortolana once again, and I'll place the lid on, and I'll do exactly the same with my basic one. And I will leave them now to cook for another 5 to 7 minutes, so that my new ingredients here with the ortolana fuse together, but also the chili and all of the parsley will infuse with the simple pasta. So I'll see you in about 7 minutes. This is the funnel from the dishwasher, by the way, which obviously I've cleaned, and I think is the ideal tool for this job. So if you've got a dishwasher, or you had a dishwasher and you managed to keep this, this is perfect if you want to make your own homemade sauce. So I'll start filling my jars. Be very careful, obviously, because this is really hot and you don't want to get burned, especially with any splashes. And I'm going to fill it up till the top, but I will leave about a centimeter there. Perfect. That's just as I want it. And I'll put this on one side, and I'll do a smaller one next. So this one will be for a meal where it's quite a few of us, whereas this little one will be for a meal where it's just Julie and I. So remember, 1 centimeter below the top, and this is done. I'll keep this because we're having pasta tonight, so I will do some of that and some of that, but I'll show you in a minute. And I will repeat exactly the same process with my Ortolana, and I'm going to be using whatever jars I've got available. So I'll use this medium one. And by the way, if you notice, because the dishwasher little funnel is got a larger hole, this is perfect for this type of sauce. So a couple of scoops and I'm there. Look at that, absolutely perfect. Too much in that one. And here is my very last one, the smallest of them all. Very big ones, medium and small. So I've got a different selection. And for tonight's dinner, I've got now a little left from my simple one and a little bit of the Ortolana left. So I'll mix them together, and that will be my beautiful base for tonight's dinner. The jars are very hot, of course, because the sauce is really hot. So I'm going to put my gloves on, and I will be sealing each jar with their respective lid. So here is the first one. I'll start with the big one, and I'll just do it tight enough. I'm not going to go mad because eventually this will have to be opened again, but just enough for it to be sealed. And I'll proceed with all of them. The majority ones are here, the olive ones, so simply I'll close it just as normal. They will be going back in water in a little while, so do ensure that they are tight enough, but once they will be heated up, the seal will be reinforced. Large saucepan, and this is hot water, not boiling hot, but what you do not want is cold water, because the temperature of the tomato obviously is very high and the glass is now really hot, and of course if you were to add a hot glass to cold water it would break. So be careful, ensure that the water is nice and hot. So I've positioned them all in, they will fit only just. I've got one little one here which I suppose I can put on top. And again I've got some hot water, and I will top them up until I cover the top with water. And that is perfect enough for me to create my seal and the vacuum I need. So I'll put the lid on, and I'll move it back on the hob, which is at the moment on maximum, and I'll wait until it starts gently bubbling, and then I'll turn it down on medium, so about a couple of minutes. You can hear that the water is beginning to boil and the glass is beginning to shake, so I don't want it obviously to go mad, otherwise the glass could break. So I'll turn it down onto medium temperature, and I will leave it without touching with the lid on for another 10 minutes. Then I'll turn it off, and I will leave it to gently cool down naturally for about an hour. In the meantime, I'll go and cut the grass, and I'll come back and I'll make dinner, and I'll tell you what it tastes like. So see you in about an hour and a half. Ciao ciao for now. And in case you're wondering why our grass is a little bit too long, that is because we don't cut it very often. There is a reason for that, not because we're lazy, but we like to think that the bees go and find the grass. We notice that if the grass is long, they will go and pollinate and do things like that, which we think is very nice.
In the weeds, you mean, yeah?
In the weeds, did you say?
Yeah.
Anyway, in case you're wondering what I'm doing, Julie has decided to barge in because she knows that I'm going to be doing some pasta, and she's just picked some French beans from the vegetable patch, which she wants to blanch. So not too many there, Julie, look. Yeah. So I'm going to put them in water for a couple of minutes, and then I will use this water to cook my pasta. And if you're doing this at home yourself, literally no more than a couple of minutes, bowl of cold water beside you, and just add your beans in the water. And what that will do, by the way, it will stop the beans from continue cooking, because clearly they are still very hot, and also they will retain a lovely vibrant and green color. And I always say that I don't make a video. I cook and then I video myself cooking. So this is a little diversification from my pasta sauce recipe, but an interesting one. So what Julie is going to do now, I think you're going to be putting them, she's going to drain them in water, put them on a tray, and then put them in the freezer so that they don't stick to one another. And once they're frozen, she'll take them out, put them in a plastic bag, and then they'll be frozen and we can eat whenever we want, just like what you buy from the supermarket. So back to my pasta sauce. I've got some di taloni, which are a very typical Sicilian pasta, so they can go in. And I haven't salted the water, so a pinch of salt. And I'll give my di taloni a little mix. They'll take about 7 to 8 minutes to cook. In the meantime, let me show you the outcome from what I've done earlier. So here they are. I've actually they are warm now. They're not that hot, so I can touch them safely with my hands. But this one and this one are the simple tomato sauce, and everything else is the ones with the vegetables, the Ortolana pasta. So they will stay sealed. They are absolutely perfect. They are sterilized. They are there. They can last up to a year if you like. In our case, we'll put them in a dark cupboard and away from the light. And as and when we want them, we use them. In terms of how you cook it, you don't really need to cook this sauce. All you need to do is to gently warm it up, and not very hot either, because the pasta is going to be hot. And cook your pasta and then mix it with the sauce. If you are doing the ortolana, I would suggest that you just leave it as it is. Whereas actually, if you are doing anything else than the ortolana, where you need a base pasta, use this as your basic passata, like what you might buy from the supermarket. However, this is also perfect as it is, just a very, very simple pasta sauce, just add a little basil. But if you want to add some mint or anything else, you can use that as the base, and it's going to be absolutely delicious. Julie mentioned earlier that she's always amazed that whenever I make this, the sauce is considerably paler. This is the color it should be, because this is the natural color of the tomato. What they do in supermarkets, when you buy, not the supermarkets, clearly the manufacturers, they make it look good. They make it look more radiant, and so that we are tempted to buy the sauce. But this is actually what it really should look like. So I'll finish cooking the pasta and then I'll test it, and I'll let you know what it's like. And away they go. So I've just warmed up my sauce slightly, and my pasta has been drained. And by the way, you do not need to leave any liquid with this pasta. Julie actually asked me, is that all we're having in terms of the sauce?
The sauce is what I meant.
Yes.
Yeah.
In terms of, excuse me, in terms of the feature of this sauce, obviously, is that it's very watery, or liquidy, I should say. So you do not need to add a lot of anything else, really. It's plenty there. One of those little jars would be plenty for 2 people. Look, can you see how beautiful it looks? But before I carry on, I'll add a few more leaves of fresh basil. As I always say, they add a distinctive flavour at the end, as they will release a new life of flavour, and that is absolutely beautiful. I'll just give it one final mix, literally about 30 seconds, enough to give the basil a little time. And before I forget, just a little amount of olive oil, not a lot, because this is about the freshness of the sauce, but it will not harm, of course, just a little. But as I often say with these things, always optional. And this is ready. And I'm gonna be serving this very much Sicilian style. This is how often my mum used to serve this pasta at the table. She didn't make as much mess as I do. Yeah. There you go. But then again, she was not videoing, in all fairness. No. So that's one.
She wasn't thinking in one language and speaking in another either.
Indeed. And in very Sicilian or even Italian style, of course, a little amount of Parmesan cheese on top is absolutely perfect. And in very, very Tortellino style, basil, there you go, a fresh couple of leaves of basil, so that it will garnish and it make my pizza look beautiful. I'll give this to Julie, and this is mine, and I promised that I would test it, so I will. And it is amazingly delicious, amazingly fresh, something that you will not have tasted ever in anything you buy from the supermarket. You can only taste something like this if you make it yourself at home, and I would fully recommend that you do. It's delicious. So remember to let me know if you have had any experience of making tomato sauce at home, maybe back in Sicily or southern Italy. As I said, this is also very common in southern Italy, and it'd be interesting to hear your story. For the time being, arrivederci and buon appetito. Ciao ciao, grazie.